Welcome back, guys. My name's Torn Pixie, and this is RPG Unlimited, a podcast about tabletop gaming. My name is Emma, and I'll be interviewing players, game masters, DMs, artists, developers, content creators for their unique views and processes when they play and or create tabletop role-playing games. Real quick, we're going to get into some info real fast. Huge text wall incoming. Once I remember how to spell start. So, you can help us out by retweeting our last tweet. You can find the link for that in chat. We do have values here. We believe in accessibility and inclusivity. We also believe in acceptance, learning, change. We believe everybody has their day and it's okay to vent. You can catch my podcast here every other Friday, and then you can find us over on anchor.fm/RPG Unlimited. Excuse me. We also have a website. I am working on getting more content in there. There will be blog posts as well as transcripts from the podcasts over there. We are also affiliated with Dice Envy now. If you're looking for a new set of dice and would like to support me as well, you can use the link in chat to do so. I highly recommend their Cosmos ones if you like really sparkly ones. The depth of color and the sparkle, no camera can catch it. So, tonight we are going to be talking with Taylor of Riverhouse Games. He is a game creator, and if you would like to check out his work, you can find him on Twitter over at twitter.com/LeviathanFiles, as well as... Nope, that's Project is the thing there. As well as some of his work can be found at riverhousegames.com and blank.
We'll insert those.
Yes.
Am I cool? I'm cool to talk?
Yes.
You've got a great flow there. I love the pattern.
Knows what she's saying, knows what she's saying, flub. Knows what she's saying, knows what she's saying, flub. Okay.
Yeah. So I am Taylor. I do Riverhouse Games. Riverhousegames.com is the big one. We've got Game Closet as a podcast on iTunes. All sorts of awesome games at riverhousegames.itch.io. And I am just really happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on and hanging out. We have someone in chat who's saying that there's a live tweet that goes along with this.
Yeah, I failed the live tweet test. And my mouse is failing the push the button for live tweet test. There it goes.
I may have to take ownership of this. I'm bona fide haunted when it comes to these online things.
We got it. It's clear.
Yeah.
So, thank you for that, Ixar. Saved my butt so many times. Alright. So, tell us a little bit more about yourself before we get into all this stuff on the games.
Absolutely. I am a queer man living in Minnesota. I love role-playing games. And I really try to push my expectations and my my preconceptions about role-playing games. So I always want to be experimenting, playing around with stuff, kind of changing the way that I play, and helping others do the same. One of my personal values is that anyone can do anything in tabletop role-playing, whether that's designing games, whether that's running games, making YouTube channels, podcasting, all sorts of stuff. So, we shouted it out at the top of the stream, but I am on Twitter at LeviathanFiles, and I will be an aggressive cheerleader to anyone who wants to get into anything in games. Let me know, and I'll shout your way to success.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into tabletop role-playing games?
That is a two-pronged answer. So the first answer is that I learned how to read at a very early age. And I would actually bring books into school and read them for my friends. And we started doing the Choose Your Own Adventure books. So I would go check out a choose your own adventure novel from the library, and then during recess I would like read it out, and then as a group we would kind of go through all the choices. And I went through all of the choose your own adventure novels in my local library, and so I decided, you know what, I'm going to make one up. And so I just started doing this sort of like interactive storytelling with my friends on the playground, and that turned into, as kids grow up and our kids like acting things out, like we would play bunny rabbits or elves or whatever, essentially just doing like role-playing games. And the summer that D&D 3rd edition came out, I went to a summer music camp and met some new friends, and I was explaining all of this stuff to them, and they were like, so you mean Dungeons and Dragons? I had no clue what that was, and so they gave me a bunch of books that had some really cool pictures in them, and I read them cover to cover, and then got into that, and the rest is history. I played Dungeons and Dragons for a solid too many years before realizing that there were other games that you could play. So it's not a secret that I'm not a huge fan of D&D, but I'm a huge fan of what D&D, the role that it had in my life and how it got me to discover other role-playing games that I do enjoy very much.
I can see that. I think that's one of the things a lot of people, when they start shouting and really promoting a lot of other games, and I'll say, D&D's good and all, but it's really just a stepping stone. And it is. You start with D&D. It is the great first girlfriend, and for some people it becomes wife-like, I guess. But it opens a door to so much, and if you just get out there, it's amazing. I mean, one of the ones I'm dying to get my hands on, and I don't want to pay the tiny little bit this creator's asking for, is Market Magic by Naomi, Breaking the Binary. The work that they put into that and just the idea around it, and it's a micro RPG, it's 200 words or less, I think, and just when they were talking about it, I had these ideas pop in my head on ways I could fit that into how I play games, and it's like, this could be a really cool mini adventure within the storyline of any game a person plays. So, really, really excited about that.
Is that the Market Magic expanded play sets?
Yes.
On itch?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this looks adorable. I am absolutely getting this.
Yeah.
It's only $2?
Hence why I'm like, no, I want to pay more than that. Because it's a golden little nugget, and it has so many applications.
So, what's really cool, and I'm glad that you brought up that, that you want to pay more for it. Itch, and we're going to just jump into my favorite thing about role-playing games right now, which is itch.io, like, embracing them with open arms, is that there's a really healthy community on itch, which, if folks are not familiar, itch.io, that is the URL on the website. It's primarily like a video game storefront, I guess, but the CEO and creator has become more and more aware of people like putting up role-playing games on there, and has been really engaging the community a lot. They just put up forums for tabletop games on there, but the community on itch is really, really like warm and accepting, and there's a healthy culture of tipping. So anytime that you purchase a game, you are given the chance of tipping $1, $2, $5, or $10 onto whatever purchase you had. So, the game is listed for $2. I tipped $1, and I have Market Magic for less than the price of a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So I, encourage everybody to go check out every game that's on itch. In the past 3 months, the number of physical games on itch went from 1,000 to 2,000. That community is exploding. Like, there's so much potential there, and I am so excited about itch.io.
Well, yeah, and I remember seeing about that on Twitter because I remember Dungeon Commander over there was talking about that. And they were like, hey, let's talk about creators and self-value and value of your product and how people really look at it, because to this day there are still people who kind of hem and haw about paying $50 for a hardcover book. And it's like, you're not paying for a one-time experience. Okay? Last time I went to the movies, you know how much I budgeted for that? $90. You know how much of that spent? $80. Or a one-time event. Now, that particular movie, I'd do it again and again for that movie. That was Battle Angel Alita, and outside of my tiny little things that I nitpick art-wise on it, storyline, it is spot on. And that just makes so much happiness. So, yeah. So they brought up this discussion there, and like, hey, if you're not aware, itch.io is doing this, and should we as a community continue with DM's Guild and DriveThru where there is a culture of devaluing, and it's like, it's heartbreaking, especially when you see the kind of stuff being put up there, looking at prices on stuff, and it's like, but this could easily be worth this. This has this much playability. It's not... I feel that tabletop role-playing games have even more replayability than any video game does. And that's saying something because most video games are built to have a certain amount of replayability. Tabletops are made to be something that you can play over and over and over again because you can change the flavor so many different ways each time.
Yeah, and at the same time, there's so many games that like you really only need to play once, or you don't even need to play. Like that's something that I am really excited about as smaller games become like the vogue or whatever, like as they become more in fashion, like people are just writing games you only need to play once, or like just the act of reading that game is enough to get satisfaction and value. And because you're not dropping $60 on it, like you're dropping $3 on it, I'll read Market Magics or whatever the name of whatever I just bought is. Like I'll read it and be happy. That's all I need out of that interaction. And because I paid $3 for it, I'm happy with the value that I got.
Yeah.
Like that replayability is a really marketable like aspect of tabletop role-playing games, but again, it's not something that I think is the end-all be-all of this art form.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because there's the consumer, and there is the fact that once you start creating, yeah, you can continue creating, but you want stuff you've created to be able to stand on its own. But it can't do that forever. It needs to evolve, So, and that's kind of one of the things I like from what I've seen with micro games is the ability to build and add, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So. Excuse me. You're also working on Descent into Midnight. That's an aquatic-themed role-playing game that delves into the depths of the sentient mind. Can you tell us a bit more about that game and what it's been like to work on Descent into Midnight?
Yeah, absolutely. So Descent into Midnight has been the biggest project that I've worked on, period. I'm working on it with two friends of mine, Rich Howard and Richard Kreutz-Landry. Both of whom are like really phenomenal game designers and phenomenal friends. Rich Howard is on Twitter at Umbral Walker, and Richard Kreutz-Landry is on Twitter at oh boy, it's his name, but I can never remember how to spell it. RKREUTZLANDRY. And they're both fantastic guys. We've been working on this for, I think, the better part of 2 years. It is a powered by the apocalypse game of underwater alien oceans and community building and ecological conservation. And it's been phenomenal to work on. It's also just been phenomenal to play. Like I say a lot that I lucked into somehow making my favorite RPG. It's fantastic. We actually just today, mere hours ago, finalized our most recent playtest document. So you can find that online at descentintomidnight.com. You can actually just go play the thing. We want as many people as possible to go play it. We want people to download it. We want people to read it. There's a feedback form that's right there, on the playtest site. And it's just been like a wild ride seeing people's responses to it. And everyone has something weird that they love about the ocean, and seeing that like sparkle in their eye as they get to play that out has been just really, really rewarding. I've learned so much about the ocean. Like, I thought I knew things. Nobody knows anything. I learned what an Aristotle's lantern was one time when I was playing, which if you don't know, I will tell you, and it will haunt your dreams tonight. So sea urchins and other like small invertebrates, they don't have like mouths with like lips and teeth or whatever. They have what's called an Aristotle's lantern, which is a ring of interlocking bones, like plates that all conjoin at a point. And so when the creature wants to take a bite out of something, it will like position its Aristotle's lantern over it, and then all of the bone plates will just kind of like come out and just spear into this thing. And because they all interlock in the same circle ring, whatever they've like pierced around, it just gets eaten. And it looks terrifying. And it's on sand dollars and sea urchins, which are like these tiny little cute things, but like, no. So yeah, it's just like learning all of these like terrifying things about the ocean has been so cool.
I feel like Subnautica may have missed a terror factor on their creatures.
Yeah.
I think if that's a game I were to get into, I would definitely be facing all my fears, because I am like a couple other well-known big streamers. The ocean terrifies me.
Yeah. And like we know that. And so half of the game is that like terrifying, the ocean is scary. But like the other half of the game, and this is where I think like the most fulfilling parts have come out of it, is its focus on friendship, community, and togetherness. So there are many moves that revolve around like introspection, checking in on others, like comforting and supporting. It's all about that interconnected aspect. And so you are encouraged both narratively and mechanically to make sure that the other characters and players are doing all right with all of the like horrible, scary shit that's going on. Can I?
That's fine.
Swear. Okay. Sorry.
Kidding. What has been some of the things we've talked about recently on the channel? Lewd is huge. Lewd is huge.
Okay.
But yeah, no. There it goes.
So yes, Descent into Midnight. You can check it out online.
Now I remembered. So I was thinking as you were describing that with the check-ins and stuff, it sounds like it has a Call of Cthulhu thing, but unlike Call of Cthulhu, where madness is one of the big things and people don't check in on each other, the big thing is, yes, check in, because this is messing with people. Whether it's messing with them as a player or just their character, you need that interaction to say, hey, this is a big scary place and big scary monsters and scary things are happening. Are you okay? So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like a lot of Cthulhu games will try and mechanize that sort of like bad things happening spiral as like insanity or madness, which is not super great when we look at like how we represent mental health. And so we wanted to definitely not incorporate any of that in Descent into Midnight. With like the scary horrors of the world, you are not losing your sanity or whatever. You are instead taking some of that corruption within you, because when you look at, how do you engage with hard situations or traumas, like you can directly resist it or you can take it within yourselves. And there's, mechanics on corruption, and what does that corruption mean for you and your community as well. So it's definitely more than just like, hey, we need this mechanical spiral to like kill your character off. We wanted to have some sort of like interesting narrative mechanic to push that.
It sounds really awesome. What has your experience as a game developer in general been like?
It has been really fantastic. And I say that like I don't have words in the English language to say how much like my experience making games means to me as a person. Like, I've grown as a human being. I've grown into like my queerness. I have made friendships and connections that will, you know, I hope last my lifetime. So Rich and Richard, who I'm working on with Descent into Midnight, are like, they feel like family to me now. And we've met because of these games. Like, it has been something that I would never give up, you know, at all. But just like, aside from the community, the act of developing games has also been incredibly cathartic for me, because I get to be expressive and creative in ways that I, you know, had never even thought about 3, 4, 5 years ago. Like in writing and producing games and then seeing the response to that, it's been really rewarding and fulfilling, as a way to say, here is my experience and here's what I want you to experience. Like, I will never ever have a way to succinctly like put into words how much I love game design. And so I try to express that by being enthusiastic about other people doing game design. And I love to say, you are doing this thing and I can tell that you love it and I love it too. So I'm going to shout at you about how much I love you doing it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question a little bit.
I think it does quite a bit. I know for me, it's not a move I'm ready to make, and maybe it's not a move I ever take. You know, I know it's not a thing for everyone, but seeing other people excited about the stuff they're getting into and that they're creating is just, that's exciting. Other people's excitement is exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And I encourage you, I don't want to like put you on the spot on stream or whatever, but like, even if you want to shoot me a DM and be like, hey, here's this idea that I have, you know, ask me like whatever, like, even if I can't answer the questions that you have, I am sure that I know someone who can. Like, we think about game design as something that is difficult to get into, but like, the reality of it is that just anyone can freaking do it. Like, game design is a very democratic art form in that anyone who can write a word on a page can like make a game. And even then, you don't even need to write. Like, there is a game on itch right now that's part of the Sad Mech Jam, I believe, that was, I think, made by Philomena Young, if I'm getting it right. It's a game, there's no words in it. It's, you learn how to do the game and play the game from a comic strip with no dialogue. There are emojis and pictures. That's the game.
Oh, that's like, interesting.
Amazing. Yeah. And like, and that's the thing. Like, I am consistently surprised and amazed and impressed and like intrigued by all the fantastic stuff that people are doing now, because they go, oh, I don't need to make a 300-page hardcover book. I can just make 200 words, throw it into a layout template and put it up online for people. I can tweet a game. Like, last year I challenged my friend John, who is at Cartwheel on Twitter with no H, CARTWEEL. He was one of the first people to get 280 characters on Twitter. And so I said, John, you know what you have to do with these 280 characters is make a game. And he ran the 280 character RPG challenge. And so many people made RPGs that were just a tweet long. Like, anyone and everyone can and should make games. Like, it's so good.
I would, that'd be a challenge. Half my tweets I can't do in a tweet.
There were people that were making role-playing games out of just emojis. Like, game design is good. Oh,
it's wild. what advice would you give to someone just getting into tabletop game development? You went right into that there. That's awesome.
Yeah, my advice is do it. My serious advice, though, is don't listen to just one person. No one is going to have all of the answers for you. My big advice is reach out to a lot of people and be excited about what you're doing. Because excitement is contagious. And there is a community out there of game designers. And the more people that you have in your corner cheering you on with something that you are excited about, the easier it is to make that thing. And the more excited you are about something, the easier it is to make that thing. And if you have a bunch of people excitedly giving you advice, you can pick and choose to what works best for you. There is no like right way to do game design. There's only like your way, and you build that as you do it.
So what is one of the biggest things you have learned since you started creating games and micro RPGs?
The biggest thing that I learned is that not everyone is going to engage with your stuff. And that was a huge hurdle to get over, is that like I don't need to impress everybody. I need to impress the 3 people that are going to like my game, because honestly, I'm never going to make a living at this. But if I can get the satisfaction and like the serotonin hit of someone going on Twitter and being like, hey, I played your game about dragon riders in the apocalypse and it was fucking awesome, like, great. I was over the moon. Someone went on with their partner and had a date night where they played this game. It's called With Fire Thy Affections Hold a Wing, and I will get a link to it as I'm rambling here from my itch, and I'll throw it into the Twitch chat here. It's a game where you play a dragon rider and their dragon, and the apocalypse is here, and you strengthen your bond, and as you tell your story, you... I hope that link worked. As you tell your story, you wrap yarn around your clasped hands. So by the end of the story, you've been holding hands with this person for an hour. And when you finally let go, like, it's this huge release. And they sent all of these pictures to me and were like, this is phenomenal. That made me feel better than, like, I sell that game for $3.99. It made me feel better than if someone had given me $100 for it. Not saying, like, don't give me $100 for that. Please, someone go pay me $100. But then also tell me about how much you loved it. Like, that was the thing that took me forever to learn, is that, like, not everyone's going to like it, so I need to hold on to the people that do.
That sounds like that could be a really cool alternative to wedding vows for people who are getting married, like, who are into TTRPG. Like, forget the vows, we're gonna go on this journey together, and we're gonna do the whole handfast thing with the wrapping stuff with this story.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. If you get married and play a role-playing game, I want to know. Even if it's not mine, I want to know.
It'd be a cool way to do it. Hey, it'd be a cool way, like, if it's a really small one, be like, all right, we're going to get married, and at the reception, we're going to go play this game together.
Yeah.
Forget the dancing and all that. We're going to do something we actually like doing.
Yeah. Before I got really into game design, I had some friends who were part of the Fear the Boot podcast community, and they got married, and they said, instead of doing like a wedding reception where we spend a bunch of money on like a fancy place and a bunch of fancy dinners, let's just rent out a theater and say, hey, come play games. So they threw like a mini convention, and they called it Recepticon. And it was phenomenal. It was like 60 people in the Mound Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota. And it was just like this little like rinky dink. They had like a local brewery cater, and it was just amazing. Like, it was super loving and super, super awesome. Like, you could just do that.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I'll have to think about that stuff, because that is a thing in the future.
Yeah.
You published 5 single play sets in September of 2016, which is a collection comprising of Woodland Animals, Superheroes, Gamers, Angels and Demons, and Wizard School. What was the biggest lesson you learned while working on that project?
The biggest lesson for that one was just kind of like the business admin side. And I'll be boring here. Like, game design is awesome and it's super amazing and it's super, like, it's euphoric and spectacular, but like, you can also just get really into the weeds on like talking to authors and like hiring layout people and like organizing all of that, and that can be super cool too. Like I wrote that with explicit permission and in conjunction with the author of the original game, which it's for. It's for a game called A Single Moment, and it's by Toby Abad, Abad. And Toby is phenomenal. I'll just say that. He is on Twitter at Toby No Shade for people, and he also is just like someone who's super excited and fantastic and like a really great queer designer. But A Single Moment is a game about two samurai who are dueling, and it's this like, it is the single moment that is the crux of their story. And if that sounds similar to a game called Reflections, it's because Reflections is based off of a single moment. It takes its lineage directly from that game. And so I really loved A Single Moment, and I really love Toby. Like, Toby's fantastic. And so I said, I want to do something. I want to collaborate. Can I write stuff for A Single Moment? And 5 single playsets will actually be in the revised edition that Toby's planning on kickstarting. But in communicating with Toby and in producing that, like, that was before I was doing my own layout. So I talked to a friend to get layout done and just kind of going back and forth on designs. And my best friend in the entire world, whose name is also Taylor, did the cover art for it. Like, just reaching out and collaborating. That was the first time that I ever really did that. And so learning the logistics and the ins and outs of that was something that was really interesting and cool.
I think that's something that can apply to a lot of things. I know reaching out to do my first collaborations was always, it's nerve-wracking because there's a balance that has to be struck, you know, and until you reach out and start working on it, you never know what that's going to look like. And that alone can be, I don't often experience anxiety. Collaboration will do it.
Yep. That's been something that, as a podcaster, has been something that I really have had to get over, because my show Game Closet, I bring on queer and LGBT plus tabletop game verbers, like anyone who does anything with games. But like, fight has been difficult to get my own anxiety over that hump. Like, I need to be better at reaching out to the people that I want to be on the show. And I'm not great at it now. I get my guests mainly because I just tweet and say, hey, I need guests, and whoever jumps in, jumps in. But in 2019, I want to be strategic about who I'm highlighting, like what projects I'm highlighting, giving that more strategic look at what's on Kickstarter, what's being released on itch, like really being more engaged with that in a strategic way.
Understandable with that. Who or what inspired you to start making games?
So I started listening to podcasts when I was a lab assistant in high school. So my job basically consisted of washing glass lab equipment for 4 to 6 hours a day, just doing manual repetitive tasks with my hands in a small room that was maybe like 10 by 20. And I needed something to occupy my time because 4 to 6 hours feels much, much longer when there's nothing going on. And so I started listening to podcasts. So I listened to a bunch of World of Warcraft ones because I was knee deep in WoW at the time. I was looking for D&D podcasts, and I found the One Shot Network. Just started getting going on that, and they were organizing a game contest for someone who was developing like a D10 based system or whatever. And they said, build a playset for this D10 role playing game. That was the first game design thing that I ever did. I built a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy hack for this D10 system. That was like the first ever like official design thing. Now, obviously, I had been like telling my friends these choose your own adventure stories for years. So like, first game design I did, or was it just like playing on the playground? But first like real like thing that I made.
Unmute helps. Oof. Some things I fail at. Unmute. This one. Okay, so that sounds really cool. I know for me, when I occasionally start writing things, usually it's random things. Maybe it's something I saw walking out and about. I think first time I tried writing a creative story, it was inspiration I took from another book. I can't even remember what it was now, but it was really, really quirky, and I was like, I want to write something quirky. Let's get some characters. Forget the plot. Let's get some characters. Yeah. It didn't go far. Probably the lack of plot. What attracts you the most to creating microgames?
I think it's just the ease. Like I can go from idea to finished item or like finished game in less than 3 hours. And I'll do another shout out here. There's a Twitter account that's just like, I think it's the less than sign and then the number 3. I want to find out. Oh goodness. In the intro, yeah. Yeah. I don't think that I will ever find it. But yeah, it's project less than 3, and so when it's written out, it looks like project and then the heart emoji, which I think is really cute. But and I don't know if they're still active or not, but like the push for it was like make a game in less than 3 hours, because like you can just do it, and that's like you'll hear me say that a million times, and this is just like you can just do it. Like there's no rules saying that you can't, so go for it. So like that's what I love about microgames is that I can say like, hey, I have this idea about, and here like an example that happened to me today. I'm going to make this weekend. My friend sent me a Twitter DM about a beach in France where Garfield toys keep washing up on the shore. Yep. My friend SJ, who is at Cowdonkey on Twitter, sent me this like a news article and just said, where is it? Role-playing game where you're getting ready to propose, but Garfield phone parts keep showing up on the beach you're on, and if your partner sees even one, the mood is ruined. And of course I immediately responded in all caps, I'll do it, don't freaking tempt me. So I'm doing it. Like that is a thing. Like you can just make a game about Garfield phone parts on a beach while you're trying to propose. There's no rules. No one's going to stop you. That's why I love microgames. You can make here another one. I wrote a game called Crumb. It's about you're a mouse and you're very hungry and you need to find a crumb. So you clean your kitchen for all the crumbs and then you eat them, aka throw them away. But then you're sad because you don't have any crumbs anymore, so you have to plant your crumb crop by cooking for the next couple of weeks until you have enough crumbs to play again. Aww. Like that's a game that you can just make.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
Ah, I kind of want to play it.
Me too. And honestly, that's a game that I am playing all the time. I'm saying this right now so that people who are listening can hear it. XR121 in the chat says, if Garfield ruins the mood, I don't want to propose anymore.
It's a feel. It's a big feel. Yeah. But you don't love Garfield. What are we?
Yeah.
Have you participated in any game jams? If so, what has that experience been like for you?
I am so glad that you asked this question because game jams are my like new hotness thing. Like I love them so much. I cannot be enthusiastic enough about game jams. I participated in the record collection game jam. I wrote a game that's like No Man's Sky or Adrift, where you are just like, it's a science fiction walking simulator that you play alongside a Philip Glass album. And I participated in the Sad Mech Jam. I wrote a game called Breakup on Reentry, which is a competitive role-playing game about discovering that your lover actually pilots the mech of your arch enemy. Yeah, it's very melodramatic. I love it. And then I actually ran the Cozy Game Jam, which was a game jam about coziness. And so it was, warmth, like the higher level, like Maslow's needs or whatever, like self-actualization, self-care. We saw a lot of games about just like together and making sure that people were okay. I wrote a game for that called Split Hand Sugar Bush, which is about my experiences making maple syrup with my grandparents. And the thing that I love about game jams, and especially right now, is that there's just so many of them. And so it's an easy pit to fall into to say, I need to do each one of these. How am I going to do all of these? But what I encourage you to do is take a step back and say, yes, there's 10 game jams going on right now. What's the one that I want to do? What's like, what am I going to get the most out of? And engage with that. Like, we don't see people looking at Netflix and saying, I can't subscribe to Netflix because I'm never going to watch all these shows. You subscribe to Netflix and you watch the shows that you want to watch. So like, do that with game jams. Find the game jams that you know that you can make something that's going to speak to your experiences and that you want to make. I love that, because then you have 10 to 20 to 30. Sad Mech Jam had 170 participants. You have a lot of people that are all making the same things that you are excited about. And that to me is super cool. The community and like togetherness and support that I've gotten out of game jams completely, eclipses everything in the years up to when I started doing games on itch. Like, my sales in the past 3 months, and I know it's not all about money, but like, this is just one indicator of like the excitement and momentum. My sales in the past 3 months are more than I've made since I started game design. Like, that to me is phenomenal. I cannot say enough good things about game jams.
Probably fair to say that game jams also give a good chance for meeting people that are on the same vibe as you for collaboration.
Yeah, you can find, like, if you say, oh, I loved doing this game jam, I'm going to see who else was in it, and just kind of scroll down. You're bound to find something that you love. You can reach out to that person, say, hey, I love this. Do you want to work together on something? I know people who have made connections like that, and I know people who I plan on reaching out to work on stuff in the future because of these game jams.
It's really awesome, especially when it's something that brings so much of the community together that before maybe how we came together was around a table, and that was to a degree limiting. There are a lot of people who shout down virtual play, and it's like, virtual play has opened up so many tables that didn't exist before because of various things. There are communities that people live in that are so small that getting together to play a game, you have to drive, for some people, hours away from home to play a game once a week if everybody can schedule at the same time. So, yeah, definitely one of those things. So I think you kind of touched a bit.
Rich in the chat.
I think you kind of touched a bit on my next one, which is, what insight or advice would you give to someone looking to participate in their first game jam? And for people looking into that, one of the questions I've started seeing pop up, how does a person get involved? Where does a person find a game jam?
Yeah. So Almost all of them are on itch. They are on itch.io. I can't say that URL enough. They have a big button at the top that says jams, and it gives you a calendar, and it says, here's when that jam is starting, here's when the jam is running too. You can click into it, find more about it. Most jams have a description of like, here's the kind of games that we're looking for. I really went hog wild on Cozy Game Jam just because it was based off of like a research paper that someone had done for video games, and I was like, here's all the cool things that I love. But like some game jams are just like 2 sentences. Make a game that does this, that, and the other thing. And there's a big button that says join. You can smash that join button. It adds you to that. It'll give you a notification before it ends. And then you make your game. You get to do the fun part, which is making a game.
That is so much
you
more.
Write it,
that is so much more interactive than smash that subscribe button.
Yeah. Well, I mean, essentially, it's a smash that join button. Like, if you have the URL to the game jam, like, people will be putting these up on Twitter. Listen, I'm never going to stop shouting out Twitter handles. RPG Design Friends is a community and also a podcast this year. And I'll throw that into chat. Their Twitter handle is RPG Design Frog because RPG Design Friends was too long. I guess. So they will tweet out game jams like constantly, and you can just jump in there, hit that join, and then make your game. And there is a button on the jam page to submit your project. Like, that's as easy as it is. Like, you upload your project to itch, you can link it to that jam. If you miss a jam, don't worry about it. You can either just go on to the next one, or some game jams will accept late entries. Like Cozy Game Jam will always accept late submissions because deadlines aren't cozy. And just because you missed this one because of whatever life circumstance, that's fine. I'll always accept a Cozy Game Jam.
That's really awesome. I think I saw something about that actually in your tweets. Pretty sure. That sounds really, really familiar.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, Cozy Game Jam is never gonna not accept submissions. One thing that video game jams on itch do sometimes is do like rankings. So they'll say like, hey, here's this game design competition, and all the games that are submitted to the jam are judged and ranked. I don't like that. Like, to me, the value that I get out of game jams is the sense of like community and togetherness and shared enthusiasm about a topic. And having a competition or like a winner and loser doesn't feel right to me. Thankfully, most tabletop game jams are continuing in that trend. So that's, you can something like when you start a jam, you select that setting to say, we're not going to rank it. We're not going to do whatever competition. And I love that has become the norm for tabletop, that we're just saying, nah, we'll pass.
Good work is good work. It doesn't have to be, this thing doesn't have to be better than that to be a good thing. This thing doesn't have to be worse necessarily, because everyone has their own thing that they're into. I think the reason, sneaky suspicion on why that video games might do that, is just the nature of video games in the first place, where it is still right out the gate the thing to make something better than anyone else has ever made within that genre, or just overall. You know, that's been part of the culture from pretty much the start.
Mm-hmm.
That could be part of it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to point out that another one of my developers for Descent into Midnight is actually in the chat right now. He's Umbra Walker 1. That's Rich Howard. Hey, Rich. Love you. Rich pointed out that there is a one-word RPG that I made, and I just linked that. It's called We Are But Worms, and it's about worms.
One word.
It's one word long. The game text is the word writhe. That's the game. You now
It's
know
one of
how to
those
play
things
We
that
Are But Words.
really makes you think out of the box. It's like,
Yeah.
it feels like it's kind of exploring the meaning of it and exploring that meaning as a worm.
Yep.
Sounds like I got it just, wow.
Yeah. I both love and hate the question, what is a real game? I think that the idea of what a game is or is not has been used a lot to like keep people out of the hobby, who are making some really cool pieces of art. And I am also really interested in pushing the boundary of that and like making games that are things that are not games. So in May, as part of the RPG Design Friends, I'll be running the Not a Game Jam, where you are encouraged to write things that are not games and submit them to the Game Jam as games.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it.
Okay, I think now might be a good time for us to cut to break. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be back shortly. So.
Hello.
So, how long have you been a content creator?
So I started making stuff when I'm going to start that sentence again. I've been doing stuff since 2015. So I started making things with a podcast called The Leviathan Files. It's a D20 Mass Effect actual play. And that ran for a couple years. Is there an echo? Oh, nope, never mind. Looks like we figured that out. So yeah, I started with the Leviathan Files and then just kind of met folks through that, and just as I've been doing newer and newer projects, just kind of building on that community and group of friends here. So, it's, and really, like, when you think about it, 2015 was not that long ago. That's 4 years. Oh, but then that also, it does not feel like it's been 4 years. Goodness. So maybe that has been a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
A lot can happen in 4 years. A lot can happen in 1 year. So.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
What inspired you to start the Game Closet podcast, and what topics do you cover?
So when I was still working at that lab where I, started listening to podcasts, I listened to a show called Justice Points, which started as a World of Warcraft podcast, but then kind of branched out into the entirety of video games. And they started out as just a kind of a feminism podcast, but then branched out into all areas of social justice. And they talked about things like race in video games and queerness and women's issues and disability and workers' rights and labor, and just it was a fantastic podcast to get into and learn about all of the different issues that games touch on. And the folks that they had on who talked about queer issues were really inspiring, and folks who I still am following and supporting since I started listening to them. One of them was Tanya DePass, who is Cypher of Tier on Twitter, and she runs the I Need Diverse Games hashtag, and also is just a fantastic person in games. She's had essays in the Off-World anthology. She speaks on panels. She's been on the Queer as a Three-Sided Die panel a couple of years when I've gone to Gen Con, as well as other panels. I really encourage folks to go out and support her. She had a show called Fresh Out of Tokens, which was about it was that play on being the token minority or being the token woman or token queer person or token Black person, in all of these pieces of media. And she had, just like Justice Points had, she had a lot of guests on who were really inspirational, and who I really got a lot out of, stories and everything. And I wanted, because I was transitioning away from listening to podcasts about video games and moving more towards podcasts about tabletop role-playing, there wasn't a show back in 2016 or whenever I freaking started Game Closet. There wasn't a show that did that. And I got tired of waiting for one to happen. And so I said, I'm just going to do it. And then at some point when another show comes along, stop doing it. But I fell in love, and now that there are more shows that are interviewing queer feet, Backstory is doing a fantastic job at getting guests who talk about that area of tabletop. The more the merrier. It has become my motto now, and I'm yes, just give me all of them. Closet though. And we really do that. We are an informal chat show with queer and LGBT game verbers. So we have designers, podcasters, streamers. We've had artists. We've had an archivist who is doing just a fantastic job. Josephine is her name, and she runs Panoply. It's Panoplit. And that's a blog and archive where they gather stories of non-male identities in tabletop games, and they're working on one with women who have been in gaming for more than 10 years to get that kind of long-term history. It's just really, a really cool scene, and that keeps me going and drives me to keep doing Game Closet. And I like to joke that it's my selfish way of meeting other queer folks in tabletop, and just it's a bonus that a podcast gets made out of it. But that's half true. So that's Game Closet, yeah.
What has that journey been like for you? It sounds like it's been a bit of a thing there.
Yeah, there are people who I met doing Game Closet that I consider some of my closest friends. Jeff Stormer and Aaron Catano-Saez of the All My Fantasy Children podcast and Party of One are people who I will support them to the ends of the earth and always check out everything that they're making. I met them doing Game Closet, and they are phenomenal folks. Who else? Everyone in the RPG Design Friends community who I've had on the show and will have is just great. I've met folks doing the show who have come on as listeners and then as guests when they have their projects. It's been a really great way for me to learn and grow as a game designer and as a queer person, but it's also been a selfish way for me to get more friends. So yeah, it's been really, really cool.
I think more friends is always a good thing. I mean, that's more people you can bounce ideas or get inspired by, so.
Yeah, and the strongest thing that the queer community has is the community. Like, queer folks have each other's backs in ways that like I've never seen in other spaces. Obviously we still have the same like infighting and bickering, and like there are still toxic queer folks. But like the strength and support that I've gotten from other queer folks talking in games has been more powerful than I could have ever hoped for.
It's really, really cool. It's good to hear. What have been some of your highlights and some of your lowlights with the podcasting and then with the game development?
Yeah, so I'll start with the lowlights first, because I'm a person and I don't like to dwell on too many negatives, but like it's easy to get burned out in tabletop. And you can do that when you have like release schedules or you're trying to do too much. I need to be better at talking about it, but I struggle with bipolar depression. So I have manic episodes and I also have depressive episodes. And when you are at like the bottom swing of like a low tide depressive episode and you get hit with burnout and you have an episode that needs to go up that week and your website goes down, and you just can't get this one piece of game design to work, like it sucks. It sucks so much. And burnout has been something that I have learned to try and like struggle with and move past. Thankfully, I'm like fueled 50% by spite. So I just like think of that burnout as like someone else, like just it's another entity outside of me that is saying that I can't do something. And so I say like, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway. But it's really hard to create like that on a long-term basis. So that's my low light. My highlight is the exact opposite of that, which is when you are, ticking on all cylinders, you've got games that you're really excited about and you put them online and everyone else is excited about them too. My highlight this year in 2019 has been, we talked before the break about We Are But Worms, my one-word RPG. I put that on Twitter and I said, hey, here's this silly joke of a game. And people went nuts about it. I put like a little video of me, like I printed it out on a trifold brochure. And like people were just chiming in with like how much they loved it. And I know it's not super healthy to like base your self-worth on the validation of others, but like that, it just felt good. The exact highlight that I want to talk about is someone's 6-year-old saw that little video and was so smitten with it that they made their own copy of it, and they recorded their 6-year-old's little drawing of We Are But Worms in like 6-year-old handwriting with paint, and they opened it up and it said Rise on the inside, and they said, hey, my 6-year-old loved it so much that they made their own, please don't sue. And just was like so excited, and their 6-year-old like made this game and has their own like game design company, and with like their own logo and everything. Like it was so cool to just be like, hey, I made this, and someone else got so excited about it. That's the highlight. That is like, I was at a gaming convention, Con of the North in Minnesota, and my mom went because she's like trying to be more into like these RPGs. Which that's a whole nother topic that I could like talk about as a highlight. My mom getting into this and finding out that she loves it. But I showed my mom this video of this handmade We Are But Worms, and like we both started crying and just like hugged each other. Like it was just so wholesome and energizing, and like I loved it. Yeah, that's my highlight.
It sounds really awesome. I hoped that someday a little kid sees something I've done and they're like, I love it, and they do something like that. That yeah. Really is a highlight when you can make something really young fall in love with something and want to do their own, or even if it's their own version of the same thing. That's powerful.
Yeah.
What systems have you played, and which ones have been your most and least favorite?
It might be easier to say what haven't I played, because I always want to play more and more things. So like obviously I got my start with D&D, but like just run the gamut of whatever games, and I've probably played it. Or 50-50 shot, I haven't played it because there's a lot of games out there. My favorite systems are. That's a good question. That stumps me because I feel like that's an answer that changes every day. Hey, Austin's in here. Austin is the Tavern Tales. I think that's Austin. If I'm not correct, is that the You Don't Meet in a Tavern? Yeah. Okay. No, Kyle. Kyle, no. I know exactly who you are. There's too many podcasts with taverns in them. I'm sorry. Kyle, I know exactly who you are. This is Kyle Gould, everyone. I hope I pronounced your last name right. I love you, Kyle. Question, yes, what's my favorite system? I am super, super stoked about Powered by the Apocalypse games. For the longest time, Masks, A New Generation was my favorite game. Now that has actually shifted hands. Descent into Midnight is my favorite role-playing game. I am increasingly more and more discovering games that use the belonging outside belonging system, which, and this is purely a coincidence, this is not a shill, Dream Askew and Dream Apart uses. It's on my nightstand. And it's a really great system, and there is no randomization in it. You don't roll dice, you don't draw cards, you have moves, and when you use those moves, things happen. You own narrative authority over everything that your character does. So when you say, like, when you have a move that says, like, put yourself into a hard spot, you are owning the narrative consequences of, like, being in that hard spot and pushing the story towards those complications. And, like, you own failure, you also own success. So belonging outside belonging, you have strong moves and you have weak moves. Anytime that you take a weak move, you complicate the story. It puts you in like danger. It drives things more towards like the dramatic and the dangerous. But then you get tokens. And you can spend those tokens to do strong moves, which are like the moves where you get to show off and like be the hero. You can like triumph over things. You can have these like big set pieces, and it's a system that really does that like narrative push and pull, I guess, and in ways that I love. So yeah, I've been looking out at more games that use belonging outside belonging. The one that I really want to give a shout out to is Exodus. It's a game of trans angels on the run in a fascist dystopia, and it's based off of Ezra Furman's Transangelic Exodus album. And it kickstarted earlier this year to the tune of like $3,000 for a Zine Quest project. So Kickstarter did Zine Quest, where they said, hey, make an RPG zine, put it up on here. And Exodus ran away with money. It was amazing to see like a queer creator just get paid like that. And Exodus, I mean, beyond that experience, Exodus is just a really, really good game. It's so good. And I encourage, I'm going to put a link to that in the chat here because I think everyone should get it. It's also in a bundle with another belonging outside belonging game called Feathers, which I admittedly have not read, but that's another game about trans angels, so it has to be good. All right, Exodus is in the chat. All right, yeah, so that's my systems. As for systems that I don't really like, if I don't have anything nice to say, I'm not going to say anything at all. So that's all we'll say about that.
That's fair. That's fair. What was your first experience like as both a game designer and developer, and as a tabletop role player?
So those are different answers to like each of those different things. My first experience as a tabletop game designer was not very positive, because I told you I made that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy hack for that D10 system that was on One Shot, and I submitted it, and they responded essentially, "We didn't read this because it was licensed property." So that felt really great. First experience as a tabletop role player was friends leading them through a choose your own adventure novel, which felt spectacular. So I am trying now, as I become more and more aware of like media literacy is a thing, whether you're talking about movies, books, games, like you have to be able to read the media that you are consuming. And as I'm becoming more literate in tabletop role-playing games, I'm becoming more and more in tune with what I actually want. I want to chase that being surrounded by friends and telling a story feeling. I don't want to chase that, like, here's this game that I made with these rules for whatever.
It sounds reasonable. I mean, I know. It's kind of similar. My oldest son hasn't gotten into any system-based stuff, but one of the things he's been doing for years is creating adventures for his friends that are very much the same thing. He tells a story, they have their characters are actors within the story, and he just kind of guides it along. You know, that's been really cool to watch him do for the past 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
So it's been one of his big, and it's cute because he comes up with a concept and he's like, "Mom, I'm gonna do this. Awesome, go do it."
Yeah.
You know, and for him, a lot of it came from his dislike of other games. Like his uncle is huge into Magic the Gathering. They shared a room for a while, and it was to the point where my son didn't have anything in that room other than a bed that half the time was also covered in these cards. Like, he couldn't walk through the space.
Oh.
So that kind of fueled a thing where he won't touch card games.
Yeah.
But he's like, I want to tell stories. These games have ideas for stories, but they don't feel like they're stories. I'm going to tell stories. So.
Hell yeah.
What kind of things do you do to prepare yourself both as a player and a character before a game?
Yeah, so the two things that I do often, I got actually from my experience in the fan fiction community. And those are making playlists and making mood boards. So for every single role-playing game character or campaign that I have, so if it's a game that I'm running for friends or if it's just a character that I am playing in a game with friends, I have a playlist for them on Tidal, and I have a mood board for them on Pinterest. And that's something that I curate regularly whenever I go and think about those characters or those games. But then it's also something that I can use to like refresh my mind aesthetically before I go to actually play. So I am in, for as much as I rail against it and complain about it, I'm in a twice monthly Dungeons and Dragons game. And on my way home from work to that game, I will throw on my playlist and sit in traffic and listen to songs that remind me of my gay orc paladin. And that's more like, that's how I get into character more than like anything else. And those are all things that I got out of fan fiction, because that's stuff that people do as they write stories or work on OCs. Like, it's, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I can agree. Those are really powerful tools. It's actually something I started having my players do. It's like, not so much the mood board, because for some people that can be a little bit more difficult, but think of your character in X time in their life. Now build a playlist around that. All right, now next period in their life. Okay, up until, okay, now we're out adventuring and experiencing these things. And you can add on as the campaign goes on, but just the feel and the emotions that you convey about a character and the background you can give without ever talking about a character through a playlist is pretty strong.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, this one seems like a weird one. I think we already have the answer. Have you ever GM'd before?
Oh boy. Have I ever? I prefer GMing, actually. I love it. Part of that's the extrovert in me that like I like to be the center of attention. But like a lot of it goes back to that, like what first got me into games at the beginning is just like being surrounded by friends and being able to share with them a story that they all love and enjoy. Like when I can see my friends sitting around a table and their eyes light up because of like something that's happening, or because like we're all weaving in, that to me, that's the feeling that I want to chase in tabletop role-playing games. Kyle, you can ask questions. Of course you can.
Yep. We'll be addressing chat questions at the end once I've gone through my set ones. We've got good ones rolling in. Awesome!
Yeah.
Within the tabletop community, what has your experience been? What do you think has been good, and what do you think could improve? And what would you do personally to improve it?
Yeah. The thing that I love the most about tabletop and the tabletop community is the friendships. The real gold in the hills is the friends we made along the way. That to me is like super amazing, and I love it. And then additionally, just like the freedom and expression that I've found in creating tabletop games has been supremely valuable. I love being an active participant in my enjoyment with media, and making games is the way to do that. The most purest form that I've found of doing that. The things that, what was the second part of that question? Like, what would I change? Yeah. I would change, I would get more people out of their shells and more people out of their comfort zones. Please don't at me on this. I love listening to the Adventure Zone. I don't think that they need as many followers and fans as they do. Like they can point some of those followers and fans at me and my friends. They can point them at people of color who are struggling in the industry. They can point them at trans folks who are using their game design money to pay for hormones. They can throw them at anything, even if it's just social capital like followers or likes. Like there are a lot of people on Twitter or any other game design community platform who are not getting eyes on their stuff. Then their stuff is just like rules. Their stuff is amazing. Erica and Exodus is a great example. Like there's a joke that Honey Heist is the only indie RPG because that's the only one that people play. Grant Howitt does not need your money. I mean, probably Grant Howitt needs your money. I'm sure that he uses it for things like food and rent. There are people who are living uncomfortably, who struggle to get by, but the clicks and the likes all go to straight white dudes. And I'll be honest, I benefit a lot from privilege. I am cisgender, I'm white, I'm a man. Just because I am queer does not mean that I benefit from other excesses of privilege. So I try to use that, like my privilege, to get into spaces to say, like, here are the people that you should be looking at. Kyle, don't. Kyle said, I'm just going to be over here. Yeah, clipping Taylor saying Grant Howitt does not need your money. Okay, maybe he does. I don't know how Grant lives.
You don't know my life.
I just know that there. Yeah. There are people. Nora Blake is fantastic. Nora Blake, who is at Neither Nora on Twitter, has written the only vampire role-playing game, and it's called Facade, and it's brilliant. Facade uses a phenomenal dice mechanic that is just like it is something that I want to steal. And so I will put a link in the chat here to the only vampire role-playing game, Facade. And there is a free copy of it called Transfusion, which is a trimmed down hack that people can just get. It's a demo for the game. Like Nora has made this game free, but you should go give her money for it. We talked earlier in the chat, DC at Dungeon Commander on Twitter. They made Mutants in the Night, which is a belonging outside. No, it's Forged in the Dark. it's a Forged in the Dark game about like mutant superheroes, but it plays with themes of like gentrification and ostracism and oppression and marginalized identities and communities. Like put eyes on these people and stop giving people who are already rich and famous millions of dollars. Like that is the thing that I want to change about the community, and I'm very passionate about it. And I'm sure that there is a critique to be made that jealousy or envy, maybe sour grapes, has something to play with, but I think that that is like justified, and I feel like that's a natural response to seeing my friends struggle and people who already have it good get it better.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we can say. A lot of people say, it's something I'm starting to see more and more. Hey, do we really need to support Critical Role as much as we do? And they're one of the groups where I would argue yes, because they are self-aware and they are starting to show it. I mean, the past week, the amount of support I've seen them throwing out to other creators like Swordsfall has been amazing to see. It's like, because they're aware that they have that power and they're using it. Someone pointed out, hey, you guys could do this. And they're like, you're right, we could. And then they started doing it.
And then exactly. Like that's awesome. And I'm gonna go ahead and just put the Kickstarter for Welcome to Ticor, or Ticor, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, in the chat here, because that is still something that is ongoing and deserves your hard-earned monies. Go back that on Twitter. That looks super cool. It's an Afro-punk sci fantasy. Yeah, it just looks brilliant and phenomenal. There's also a hashtag Fund Diverse Games that is rolling around on Twitter that I think people can benefit from. Just like there are people who deserve your attention, and the thing that I would change is give them attention.
It sounds like a fair thing. So, out of all the different styles of play that is out there, what is your favorite style of play?
My style of play is tell me what you want to happen and then let's make it happen. Like I'm a firm believer in telegraphing your wants and desires to your GM or facilitator. I will give you an example of what this looks like during play. In my regular Dungeons and Dragons game, I am playing a gay orc who is a part of nobility, and he is not super great at combat, but he is very, very good at like being fancy.
Words.
And yeah, exactly. There was a storyline that we were doing in our most recent session where his boyfriend had been kidnapped and he was trying to go save him, and we needed to like sneak into a castle or whatever. And I stopped and I said, hey, David, I know you set this up like a stealth kind of thing here. Can I pitch something to you? That phrase, can I pitch something to you, is great. Use it all the time to suggest what you want to have happen. And I said, what if, and this is just me being melodramatic and being extra, what if there's also a masquerade ball going on? And my DM, who knows me very well and knows exactly what I want and trusts me to say what I want, said, absolutely, let's do it. And just rolled with it. Like, that's the kind of play that I want to have happen, is that trust between player and GM to say, like, here's what I want to have happen. Okay, cool, let's make it happen. And we played a game in a masquerade ball, and it was great. We had all of the like stealth, and like we did get into a fight for some reason, I don't know. But we also just did it while we were all looking suave and like amazing, and there was music playing and like super melodramatic, and I got to kiss my boyfriend, and it was great.
It sounds awesome. There needs to be more balls in.
Yeah. I mean,
or dance balls. Yeah. There it is. There's that moment.
Yeah. Thanks, Kyle.
Oddly. Okay. I think that really settles the questions I had. I know Ixar asked earlier, what is it you do about writer's block when developing your games?
So here's the cool thing about making just a shitload of micro games, is that if you have writer's block on one, you can always just work on another. Like, there is always something that is going on that I'm like, that would be a cool game. Like I have 10 projects on the back burner that I could always like jump to if I'm ever struggling with one. And I do often struggle with writer's block. Like I'll sit down with a game and just be like, okay, today I'm going to work on this as a game about fishing, which is a game that I'm writing and it's about fishing. And I'll be like, honestly, like I wrote 20 words in the last hour. The energy to work on this game right now. What else do I have going on? And even if it's like not game design, there's all of those things that are that like business admin side of things that I can do. And so I really believe in like trying to understand the needs and benefits of everything that you want to do, whether that's write a game, produce a podcast, keep your website up, fulfill orders, schedule guests. Like you will always have a task that matches your energy level if you can stay on top of things. And this is something that I've learned in my like boring corporate job where I am a supervisor and project manager. And really understanding the entire environment of what you are doing helps you to tackle those like systems and like to-do lists really at ease. And if I've got 5 minutes that I can work on something, I know what's on my plate that can take 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's really good advice there.
Yeah.
Tavern Tales podcast asked, Taylor, where did you get your hat?
I got my hat on a generic fishing website. You can kind of see it. It's called Sims. Someone on Tumblr had, I think, maybe posted about this. I am very like excited about being Minnesotan, and part of being Minnesotan is that we love to go fishing. I'm also very excited about being queer as hell, and so this is a rainbow trout hat. It's great. There's a nice picture that I used to have that was me in this hat in our state fair. The DNR, or Department of Natural Resources, ships in a bunch of rainbow trout into this big aquarium, and it's very gorgeous and it's very beautiful. And I have a nice little same hat picture with me and those fish.
Also, rainbow trout are delicious.
They are, yes. They taste very good.
We have a couple fisheries here that open up once a year. And, well, once or twice a year. In one season, it's the rainbow trout. And another season, it's the salmon. And it's hard to choose between the two.
We don't get good salmon in Minnesota. I mean, we get some like out of Lake Superior, but you have to go all the way up to Duluth for that.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah.
We've got a few rivers here with them. It's kind of what we're known for. Another question was, how did you get to be so awesome, positive, and freakishly? I don't know that word. I think it's effulgent.
Effulgent. Let's look it up. Effulgent. Shining brightly or radiant. Kyle, you're gonna make me cry. I don't know. I guess I was like raised well or something. I get a lot of energy when the people around me are happy, and so I think the way that it's a self-replicating machine, or like one of those things where the more I can be a cheerleader for people, the happier they are, and the more positive and enthusiastic they are, which makes me feel better. And so it's like it's self-interest is why I'm so happy and bubbly. And just it was one of those things that like in my struggles with bipolar depression, it's a lot harder to be sad than it is to be happy. Not in like the effort that goes into it, but like experience. Like it sucks to be down at the bottom of low tide, and there's been a lot of curated self-care and like intentional actions to pull me out of that. And some of that is encouraging my community and encouraging my friends and reaching out to people who I care about, to really pull me out of that and like actively be happy. And learning how to be actively happy is not something that I can teach anyone, because I don't know how I learned how to do it. but it's something that's been, incredibly important. Yeah.
Thought my fiance had a question. I guess he changed his mind. Next question was, how do Torn and Taylor know each other? I can say we don't really know a whole lot about each other. I put out a call about 3 months ago now. Has it been 3 months? Yeah.
Listen, I'll be 100% honest. I forgot about this. So when you messaged me like a couple weeks ago, like, are you still interested? And I was like, yeah. Yep, sure.
I put out a call a few months ago when I was getting to launch my podcast, and it was something that popped in my head, and like 12 hours later, I decided, okay, we're doing this, and we're putting a thing out, and we have graphics done because I'm crazy. I get an idea, I run with it without really researching anything. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. We're doing it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's been awesome. Wild. It's been wild.
I'm really glad that you did check in and remind me of this, because I'm very glad to have met you, and I'm happy that I got to be in this experience.
The response right off the bat was crazy, and I'm actually
good.
I think June is roughly when I need to be sitting there like, all right, let's get our next round, because it felt that fast. And I know part of that is being 1 week on, 1 week off, but at the same time, as someone who only recently started really reaching out to the community online as far as tabletop role-playing and all that kind of response right off the bat was just, okay, people want to talk about their stuff. This is awesome. Let's get people talking about their things. So it felt good. It felt really good.
Yeah.
Is there another one? Let's see. Umbral Walker asked, what games are you developing based on all the murder-haunted basements and houses you've been in?
Oh, goodness. So there's a little bit of story to this. So I've stayed, the past couple of years, I've stayed with Rich in Airbnbs at Gen Con, and we're 2 for 2 on haunted basements. The first one had just like a small, like maybe 10 by 10. It was a natural dirt floor. And then there was just a tarp that was in the middle of it that was held down by rocks. I don't know what was under that tarp, but I know that it had some unfinished business. And then the second year we were treated, it was a blessing. It was maybe the most haunted area that I've ever been in my entire life. You would like go down this staircase, and you had to crouch really far down, because like the staircase had maybe about this much room in it. And like everything was dusty and covered in cobwebs and like natural brick. And there was no lights. And so it was this like completely pitch black, cramped little crawl space hallway that then opened up into a room, a cement room with a light on, one light bulb in the middle of the room, and there were 2 lawn chairs that were sitting next to each other facing the same direction. And there was like a table on the other side of the room. So the lawn chairs were looking at this table with the light over one of them. There was a dehumidifier in the room. And that was, if that wasn't creepy enough, there was a doorway that, like, because of the contrast from the one light bulb, the doorway into the next room was complete pitch black. And so it looked like this portal to hell. And all, like, throughout this whole, like, area, there's, like, holes in the wall that just, like, led to darkness and caverns. I'm not making this up. There is video evidence of this. And so, like, when you go into the last room, the third room is the worst of them all. Because the third room is, like, it's just this tiny room with a boiler in it. And then the wall is starting to bulge inward. And it's leaking lime from the cement bricks from this bulge. And so it's like some strange mix of like the cask of Amontillado and like every horror movie where hands come out of the wall and like press, and like it was the most intensely claustrophobic and frightening room, and I loved it. It was incredible. I was down in that room.
That is definitely some
so
stuff.
Much. Yeah. And then I tricked people into playing 10 Candles down in that room. And if folks are not familiar, 10 Candles is a very unsettling horror game where you play with 10 lit tea light candles. And as the story progresses, you're supposed to slowly extinguish the candles. And as you extinguish them, the monsters that are chasing you grow stronger. And you lose less and less authority over what happens in the story. And so by the time that you are finished the game, there's one tiny light in this entire dark area. We had like a very haunted experience of 10 Candles that you can actually listen to on the RPG Academy network podcast feed. So I won't like give away everything there, but we had a prayer candle that just went out. And it was a saint who's like, one of the things for that saint was like giving light and protection. So that candle guttered out almost instantly, and we couldn't get it to light again. That was haunted. In editing, I discovered some like noise artifacts because it was very loud down there. And in cleaning up some of the noise, there's an artifact where it sounds like someone in a very deep voice saying, "I super hate you," which is great. It was phenomenal. So yeah, that's the thing. That's the story. That's the background of these haunted murder basements. And so I wrote a game about them, Rich. To answer your question, I've already developed a game. It's called Haunt Here Often. You can buy it on itch, and then I will also link you to, where is it? We have a print and play of that game up on DriveThru RPG. And I really only use DriveThru anymore for print-on-demand stuff. But the moment that itch provides a print-on-demand service, I will be putting everything over there. So Haunt Here Often is a game about speed dating for ghosts. And you are encouraged to play it in the scariest place that you can possibly find to combine that silly, scary feeling of speed dating where you don't quite know what you're going to end up with, and you're a little scared to put yourself out there and be vulnerable. Yeah. So very long answer to that question, but thank you for coming along for the ride.
It sounds like it was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
I grew up in a house with a full basement that was full cement all around, but it didn't have all the separate rooms. And even at that, it's still remembering how when I was little and the first time I went in that basement and just how creepy the space was. And I gotta say, yeah, that one was haunted too. I don't think there's a basement that exists that isn't haunted. It's like their nature. They attract haunts. Whether something went down in them or not, of which that one I was always sure because there was weird stuff on the walls.
Full cement basements are incredible. I love them.
We are dwarves. We aren't meant to be beneath the earth. We'll see about that. We keep up where we're going. That might be the only place to be. So.
Okay. I found the murder basement video from the second one. Maybe I did. Yes, I did. I'm going to throw that in chat here. It'll take me a moment. No, the second one, Kyle. So it looks like Kyle posted the first murder basement. There's the second one. So, yeah, that's a good one. Oh, yeah, just scary places are fun to be in.
They can be. We've got a few places around here that are supposed to be really, really terrifying that I haven't gone to. A few scares as well myself. So, all right, I think that's about it. Unless anyone else has any more questions for Taylor.
We'll give them a little bit for the video to catch up with chat.
Mm-hmm. Looks like we do have a few more questions here. Let's see. Where can we find Taylor next?
You can find me next on... Here we go. This is a new thing. I just started a YouTube channel. You can find me on YouTube by searching Riverhouse Games. We don't have enough subscribers yet where I get my own custom URL, but if you can convince however many more I need to get to 100, then I will be on YouTube at youtube.com/riverhousegames. And I am trying to do that in opposite weeks that I do Game Closet. So Game Closet is bi-weekly. And our next episode will go up next weekend. So that means that we're going to have a YouTube video this weekend. In just a couple days here, you'll see one. I'm going to do a review of all the games that were in the Cozy Game Jam. So that'll be super fun. You can also find all the great stuff on descentintomidnight.com, which is where we'll be living for a little bit.
Next one was, when will Torn and Taylor play in a game together? I think that really comes down to schedules. I know I've got my Friday game on my off weeks here. I've got my Sunday game, which is pretty steady there. I've got 2 more that I'll be launching. They'll be offsetting weeks on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, I'm actually going to disappear for the next 8 weeks because I'm going to be over on Almighty Tales playing a game over there. Depending on what happens with that afterwards, I might be able to pick up another game for Wednesday nights, or who knows. I mean, I've got 2 different settings that I'm planning for my Tuesday stuff, so we can talk about that.
Yeah,
we can totally talk about that. There's another one. Can we convince Torn to have people on to play Descent into Midnight on stream? That could be a possibility. Again, that comes back down to schedules and how things work out. It sounds like something that people would be interested in, and we'll see where things go in the coming months. We've got some time on that. So, all right. So I think that really covers everything. Thank you so much for being on my show. It's been great having you tonight. Absolutely. This has been a joy. Thank you for reaching out and for scheduling all this. This was very, very fun. I've enjoyed it, and at some time in the future, another one? Absolutely. Awesome. Sounds good. All right. And there. So, if you would like to keep up with Taylor and Riverhouse Games, you can follow them on Twitter at Leviathan Files, and you can find more information about Riverhouse Games at riverhousegames.com. as well as descentintomidnight.com. This has been RPG Unlimited. You can find my show here on Twitch every other Friday and on other platforms the following week. We'll catch you guys around next time.